Good evening. I'm Coach Mitchell.
And I'm Coach Darren.
Welcome to the Power of Now. I love it. I love it. I love it.
All right, this is Coach Mitchell, Coach Darren of MD Coaching and Consulting.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I love how we rehearse it and get to the live, and it's like, oh, free fall. Anyway, we want to thank you for joining us tonight as we talk about commanding your emotions, and not just talking about how to command your not allowing your emotions to dictate your reactions and your responses and controlling you in essence. But we want to talk about how we can shift the narrative and have our emotions under control, commanding our emotions so that when we're reacting and something occurs with us, we are self-aware enough to be able to talk things out in our conscious mind so that we're able to handle them effectively, so that they don't damage relationships, whether it's personal, professional, etc.
Or they don't cause us to make a decision in the moment that may have lifelong impact.
Long-term impact.
The reason I said where we want to talk about this topic is, one, I don't think we are actually aware of the emotions. Like I said, our entire day is filled with two things: thoughts and emotions. And we don't actually give a lot of effort to how much it makes up our day. We're just constantly in a reactive mode. So much so that we sometimes could lose a good portion of our day or days.
Right, because we're wrapped up in our emotions and not really sitting in them to deal with them, to determine why you're feeling a certain way or what may have triggered your emotional reaction, just in your day-to-day interactions. So before we get deep into the conversation or the discussion, we want to invite you to join the conversation, number one. Second thing we want you to do is look right up at the top of the video and click on StreamYard and allow access so that we can see your name, because we want to acknowledge that you took the time to spend a couple of minutes with us tonight. So click on StreamYard. All it's doing is allowing access for us to see your name. It's not accessing any of your personal information or any information on your page. It's simply allowing us to see your name, and we would love to acknowledge that you're here with us.
And, if people want to join, can let me know who's on board. But in the meantime, I just want to make this clarification that we often use feelings and emotions interchangeably, but they are not the same. For simplicity, we will sort of talk tonight about them being one and the same, but actually they're not the same.
Well, you're right, because we do need to make a distinction.
Yes.
Because you can have emotions and not really feel them, and therefore suppress them or regress them or repress them, I should say. So you want to be able to feel what you're feeling, but it's important to understand how you should manage what you're feeling. Good evening, Pastor Nicole. Thank you for joining us. So you want to be able to acknowledge how you're feeling, because the acknowledgement of your emotion is going to allow you to effectively manage through why you're feeling the way you're feeling.
Even with that, there is I would say, a clinical distinction, that goes beyond that. which is our emotions. They say our emotions are basically a real-time response sensation to something that is occurring, whereas our feelings are usually a response to our feelings can be biased, and they can be biased because of uh, our our memories could be biased because we're basing it on false beliefs,
Mm-hmm.
which is basically two people could be in the same emotional situation but have totally different feelings about it. And again, our feelings quite often uh, are impacted by something that may have occurred or more mental, whereas emotions are more of a bodily response.
Yeah.
So when we're talking tonight, for simplicity, we're going to kind of talk about them interchangeably. We want to make that clarification that they are not really the same.
Yes, yes. And Dr. Nicole says that the topic of emotions keeps following her everywhere she goes lately. What is God really trying to tell her, right? So I think we are all in that space for whatever reason I think it is for us to deal with, because we are in that space.
Mm-hmm.
And how apropos that the topic for tonight just came to us, or Coach Darren, literally 2 hours before our session tonight, because, we usually collaborate before our Tuesday night lives, but, with things that are going on, not just in our personal lives, but what we see playing out across the country and just the world itself, we see that individuals are not really dealing effectively with their emotions.
Yes. And this sort of piggybacks on pastors, once in a while it's following her. But we're also in a larger space. And this is what I've been sharing with people. You have to notice, I'd say we're going through an awakening, right? And I want to just say, ignore the whole thing about people's fight against the term woke, because either you're woke or you sleep. But there is an awakening going, meaning a lot of people are trying to move into what I call now self mastery. And you see it with all of the information. People are into certain things like meditation and yoga, more focused on health and wellness. People are trying to really go within more so than ever before. So the fact that this topic is up and it's following you or you're attracted to it, well, it's probably, again, they say sometimes where we are led to learn that which we are called to teach. So maybe something's coming where you're going to have to speak on this, which is why you're being, pulled. It may not be anything you personal, that you're dealing with your emotions. Maybe it's something that you're going to be called to teach or talk to somebody about controlling their emotions.
I think we're there.
Yeah.
And I think personally, I think collectively as, a church body, we are there. Pastor said she had to speak on it. And when I say pastor, for those others that are listening, I am talking about Dr. Nicole. She just happens to be my pastor as well. But we are in that time and space, and I won't say season, but I'm saying that time and space where we have to really dig deeper into ourselves, because the reaction to what's going on in the world has to be different than a trigger reaction.
Yes.
So
as we start to move into the subject matter, we also make a distinction between a reaction and a response. A reaction is you don't think about it. Sometimes the reaction is good. If you're, like I said, if you're a trained martial artist and you got quick reflexes, you will react. And some people say that's actual response because it's also trained.
mm-hmm.
So you ask yourself, how often do you react emotionally to something as opposed to responding? Because that response, will take, like I have saying, and even created a meme which is floating around. But I said, you know what? What happened? The quality of our life is based on our response ability. Again, response ability. How good are we able to respond to things that happen to us? And it's totally different. You know, like I said, we can't control what happens to us, but we can control how we respond. And to Coach Mitchell's point, you see quite often in what is happening uh, everywhere, people are reacting.
Mhm.
And they're reacting because they have not acquired the ability they have no self-mastery.
Right. And they haven't really learned how to effectively manage the emotions that they're feeling,
Yes.
because emotions are a feeling. So if you haven't really mastered or learned, I won't say mastered, because none of us are really masters at anything. You know, we might call ourselves that, but we're not. But a lot of us are more wiser than others because we take deliberate action on self-evaluation, on taking a introspective look at who we are
Mhm.
and where we're headed, what we're feeling, how we're feeling those things, and why we're feeling those things. Most people don't do that, right? Most people don't take the time out to do that. Most people don't listen to those who can probably help them facilitate through what they're feeling and their emotions. But the majority of the population does not do that. So,
And I think, you know, part of that goes to, again, where we are as a society, can you say maybe as a global society, in terms of what we even think and feel about who we are as individuals. And because most of us, I mean, I think we're all probably broken in some form of fashion, but because people aren't feeling whole, every little thing that happens to them, they take it personally.
as a personal attack.
Yes. And as a result, they just respond because they feel they have to protect something. You know, as I was in a conversation, you know, recently with Ray, and I don't know if Ray is on, but you know, I said, some people, they're at a point where the only thing they have in their life is their opinion. And they're going to fight for that.
They're gonna fight to keep it,
Yes.
and hang on to it, because it's their intellectual,
Mhm.
if you will, if you can use the word intellectual, but it's their intellectual property, and they want to protect it at all costs.
Yes. And that leads people to wanting to be right, and then they become defensive. And the saying I got from, I believe, Dr. Wayne Dyer, who said, you know, you want to be right or do you want to win? And you guys heard me say this on multiple occasions. Sometimes you cannot have both. Mhm. You should always choose to win. And sometimes winning means I'm going to walk away. You know? So again, part of being able to control your emotions is also having that self-awareness and assessing what do you really value in your life.
Mhm.
And sometimes it's part of retraining. And I say this is real important for, I think, men, because we are conditioned to respond in anger. And I've always said anger is the only masculine, by society standards, only masculine emotion. And therefore, you know what? That's what we go to. That's our go-to.
Mhm.
Quite often, that will get us in trouble.
Absolutely.
You know, and I hate to keep bringing up this incident, but it is a prime example in the circles in which we talk about this, is the infamous Oscar slap. That was an individual who somehow lost all ability to control himself and got pulled in to something that you know what, that just put a big stain on an otherwise great career. And as we saw, it impacted other people too.
Exactly. But you said something that I think is up for discussion and maybe not in this session, but you said, people want to fight for what they value, but a lot of what you see are people fighting for what they think in the moment because they don't have any values. They haven't really set to think about what it is that they really, what are their, and I'll use a corporate term, what are your core values, And if you see me looking up, it's because I'm looking over my laptop to talk. But it's because people do not have and have not identified. I won't say they don't have, but they have not identified what their core values are. So they're fighting for whatever they're feeling in the moment. So I think the question is, how do you identify that you have a problem with dealing with your emotions?
First, I always think is, what? Everybody just stop. Usually, almost like you're breaking up chaos. Everybody just stop. Be quiet. And what comes to mind is something my 7th and 8th grade gym teacher used to really instill in us, and he used to always say, "Think about it." And really, sometimes you have to have the awareness to stop and be able to question yourself, like, why am I doing this?
Right. And is it always me at the center, of the contention, the chaos, the confusion, right? Am I having issues in my relationship? Am I, having difficulty dealing with others? Is there always conflict in my interaction with others? Am I having conflict with myself? Because, when you are emotionally immature, you're constantly having those conversations in your head, right? So it's that age old, the good versus evil, on your shoulders, and you're having this fight. It's this constant battle, but it's because you really haven't sat down to deal with what's really at the root of these emotional outbursts.
Yeah. And I think what a person needs, we all need this probably in some area in our life. We can only move on things that we are aware of. If this is all I know, then I don't see a problem with it.
Exactly.
Somebody has to be in our space somewhere. I'd probably make a little change there, but for the most part, somebody has to be in our space to tell us there's another way.
Exactly.
There's a world outside of yourself.
You get into solutions now.
Yes, or the other thing I think could happen is sometimes we just get so exhausted with what we're doing or how we're living. That now we go searching for something.
Absolutely. And Dr. Nicole says emotional immaturity causes you to blame others for where you stand in life. And that's so true, because we don't want to take accountability, and we want to find a reason to be where we are.
Yeah, I have a acronym for blame. And that's, excuse my French, it's believe in lame ass meaningless excuses. All right, that's all that is. Because at the end of the day, you'll have to step up and take control. You may need help, which is okay, but you do have to take control.
Right, and that's another conversation. You gotta let go of your pride, and you have to be humble enough to recognize, one, that you need help, and two, to ask for help.
Yes.
And not be ashamed to do that. But I was talking about really addressing how do you know that your emotions are out of hand, and some of the conflict that you see arising in your life. but also trouble at work or school. You can't really develop wholesome relationships, nor can you work collaboratively in a team environment at work. You're always the one that really people don't want you in their space because you are the negative component, right? You're turning to other things like other substances to help you manage through life,
Yes.
through the minutia of life and manage your emotions. But if you're not able to effectively manage your emotions, like we just said a moment ago, your first reaction is an outburst.
Mhm.
You feel attacked, right? So if you can't muster up the yes, Dr. Nicole, you have to ask for that support.
Yes.
You have to ask for support.
And you know what? We're in a world now where information is at our fingertips. Mhm.
You mean Dr. Google?
Yep, Dr. Google, right? And it may not give us a complete answer. But like with these sessions, I call these awareness sessions. We don't have, in an hour's time, we're not going to give you a complete solution to something. And you shouldn't be looking for a complete solution in an hour.
Right.
But it's about to create the awareness, and maybe it will get you to say, oh, wow, I didn't know that. Let me go learn more.
Right. And it's to really lead by example that every day we get up to try to be a better version of ourselves than we were yesterday.
Correct.
And it's having that conscious awareness. And it goes back to self-awareness, and it goes back to our foundation of bets,
Mhm.
your beliefs, your emotions,
Your thoughts,
your thoughts,
and your story.
and your story. So if you're constantly going deeper into who you are, that introspective, just peeling back the layers of self and getting rid of some of those things that we've brought along, that baggage that we've brought with us, and not ever having unpacked it, then you're never going to get to a place of, I won't say um, euphoria, but you'll get to a place where you are happy with yourself and you can live at peace and you can live in harmony with the world around you, Because what we see playing out now are individuals who cannot deal and have not dealt with their emotions on a conscious level.
No.
And what we see playing out with the mass shootings, with, just the senseless domestic violence cases, people just acting out on each other, are people not really, one, we're going back to values. They don't have a value system. They don't know what it is. They've not sought it out. They haven't surrounded themselves or been around individuals to tap them on the shoulders, because sometimes you don't know what to ask. Sometimes you don't know the question.
Epistemic risk.
Epistemic risk.
Risk of not knowing what you do not know.
Exactly. So you have to have people in your space that's going to tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, there's a better way.
Yes.
There's a better way. And not just say, hey, there's a better way, but let me help you get there. Let me show you. Let me show you what that way is.
Or at least point you in the direction of somewhere, someplace where you can get out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So again, start off with, looking at yourself, and again, you have to be able to say, am I living my life on a level or in a space that I want to? Is there something missing? No. If you can be honest, because it does require, a bit of honesty, am I always mad? Am I always frustrated? Am I, do I live in, a state of negativity?
Can I just pull the pin of expectation out?
Go ahead.
You can't do this at the drop of a dime. It's not turnkey.
No.
This is something that you have to work on. It's not something you can just pull the plug out and, hey, you know what? Yesterday, I didn't know how to manage my emotions, but today I do. It's something that you have to work, you really have to work at and aim for regulating how you think about things
Yes.
and how you approach things. Because if you continue to repress how you're feeling, the emotional reaction is going to be, again, it's going to be one that is catastrophic. You're going to blow your top. You're going to lose control. You're going to damage relationships because you don't know how to communicate effectively.
So it begins, anything transformative always begins with a desire. Mhm. And I find that that's interesting because, as you've heard me say before, the word desire comes from the words, of the Father, from day meaning, of, and sire meaning Father, or from the stars. So it's coming from a higher place than you. So that desire, once you get that, that's your connection. Now it's a matter of, how do I manifest that into my physical world? How do I begin to implement that? But you first gotta have desire. It has to be your desire. It can't be somebody else's desire for you.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. So that begins the ball rolling, and then that then begins with you having the awareness. Now, even for those people, like we kind of went down a path where we would gave the impression that we're talking about people who have real emotional challenges every day. No,
We're not talking about the mental health,
right. No, we're not talking
the
about people,
psychological,
yeah, or
the
people
clinically
that
diagnosed,
uh,
because we're not licensed to do that.
or the people, like I said, who are just always mad and negative. We're talking about pretty much any of us have lost hours, days in our life because
Mm-hmm.
we chose to be in a state that really wasn't, in an emotional state that wasn't beneficial to us.
Mm-hmm.
How many times if you ever met somebody or been with someone and you just realize that when you said to them, you just want to be mad.
Oh yeah.
Because after you interject logic, explain to them that they're possibly wrong, they're still holding on to that emotion.
Exactly.
So they're choosing. But here's the catch, and why it's important to get a hold of your emotions. Because your emotions will do one of two things. They either deplete you or they renew you. They deplete you or they renew you. They deplete you, they're also aging you. If they renew you, they also tap into a a youthful gene inside of us. So, which is why happy people tend to live longer. So this is not just about you know uh, controlling your emotions, also controlling
Mm-hmm.
your health and well-being. So
And there's a balance there that you really need to strike, because you can consciously be happy, but subconsciously be suppressing
mhm.
some emotions that may take you off kilter.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So,
So yeah. This is not about suppressing
right.
because you got to feel the feeling, but you begin to ask yourself, you want to question yourself, can I do this a better way?
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Is it really the end of the world?
Right.
No. Did the person do this to me? Am I taking something personal that really wasn't directed?
Correct.
Toward me?
What am I feeling right now?
Yes. And why am I feeling
And
this?
why am I feeling it? Am I disappointed? Am I sad? Am I frustrated? What is it that was triggered because of that interaction?
Yes. I just think that we can only be offended by something that we possibly think is true. Because if somebody said something to you that you knew was just way off the wall, you wouldn't take it personally. You look at them and think, they must be crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome to a really rich person to call them poor. Mhm. Unless they got a mental state where they're still thinking in the poverty state. Otherwise, they're gonna look at you now. That's not true.
Mm-hmm.
So you begin to ask yourself, oh, what am I feeling in this moment, and why am I feeling that? Back to Coach Mitchell's, you know, uh, statement. This doesn't happen overnight. It is a process where you constantly begin to catch yourself. For me, it was whenever I reacted a certain way, I looked and said, could I have handled that better? What made me act that way? Why did I get that emotional response?
Mm-hmm.
So you want to begin, just looking at yourself, uh, and observing your emotions. I like to, something I recently learned is an organization called the Heart Math Institute, and they have the exercises and a whole bunch of things on controlling your emotions, going from one emotional state. What's that? Is there a better way of dealing with these emotions?
That's one of the questions that you should ask yourself.
Oh, okay.
You know.
Yeah. With that question, and I'll circle back, but with that question, what's my long-term gain? Mhm. If I'm just reacting to something in the moment, mhm, how's that going to impact the next, play?
Play. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's something that we don't think about when we get caught up in the moment. Mhm. That we don't see how this plays out. I say, what's the long game here? And I get it because we've been conditioned to be reactive,
Mm-hmm.
especially when we're caught in our ego.
Yep.
Mhm. So, you got to take time and again, ask yourself, you know what? Either what am I getting out of this, or is this the person that I want to be for myself, for my wife, for my children? You know, uh, you know, all for a moment of what I would believe victory. Mhm. So,
Do you want to just acknowledge what you're feeling
mhm,
when you're feeling it?
mhm,
But the key is to learn how to deal with the emotion that you're feeling effectively.
yes, mhm,
Don't deny what you're feeling, because
mm,
that's the suppression,
yes,
which gets you back into repression, which puts it back into your subconscious mind, which turns that cycle, starts that cycle
mhm,
back over again, right? So you want to acknowledge how you're feeling, but then learn techniques on how to effectively deal with those emotions.
yes. And other thing is always remove judgment,
Yep.
because in a bigger perspective is there are no good or bad feelings. You're feeling what you're feeling.
Mm-hmm.
The question is why?
Mm-hmm.
Because like I said, two people can be have the same emotional state of being, but have different feelings about it.
Right. We can go back to the story of the phone call that we had and the call dropped.
Mhm.
And we were in the middle of disagreeing with one another and the call drops. And the emotional reaction was, for me, how dare he hang up on me? And that led to a litany of reactions that lasted far longer than they should have had I taken a minute, taken a deep breath to just step through some of what possibly could have happened, some of the alternatives than you disconnecting the call. We live by satellite, right? We communicate by satellite. Maybe I hit a dead zone. Maybe he hit a dead zone. I mean, I could have walked through that process, but in that moment, I allowed my emotions to dictate my reaction.
Actually, that's a good example to determine the distinction between emotions and feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Because in that moment, the emotions was a response to an outside stimulus.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. But your feelings were made up in your head because of what you thought about the phone call dropping.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly.
The phone call dropping was just like, oh, you know, what what just happened?
What just
Mhm.
happened?
You know, but before you could answer what just happened, the feelings, we went through the period where the feelings came in,
Mhm.
and our feelings what? It came up with a false narrative in our mind, which is why you always want to check, you know, what you're feeling, and is it based off of something valid? Because
Correct.
feelings can be very biased.
Correct. Because I can make them what I want them to be.
Yes, you know,
And I did
yeah,
for 3 days.
and often we all do, because why? We want to be right. Uh, now you know if you have a pencil and paper nearby, you know what? Please pull it because I'm asking you to just I'm gonna share something with you, and you normally have a slide, but I want to ask you just kind of jot this down.
Go ahead. I'll
And,
just
and it's
post it in
something
the.
I learned from, again, it comes from the Heart Math Institute, and it's called the Inner Weather.
Hard math.
Heart Math Institute. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and so we got a grid. I'm trying to make it as simple as possible, being kind of going without slides presentation. But some you got a quadrant, and on your vertical axis,
Vertical, that's up and down.
mhm, it goes from low energy at the bottom and then high energy at the top. Then
High would be top left,
now just the on the axis,
just the axis.
right?
Okay.
All right. The horizontal axis is your emotions, all right, which go from depleting to renewing. So from your left, which is the lower part, you have depleting emotions. On the right, you have renewing. Again, on the bottom, you got low energy. At the top, you got high energy. So you got four squares. In the lower left squares would be your emotions that are depleting and they're also low energy.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. Now, those are the emotions that, again, usually leads to, well, one of them is depression, but those are like emotions like sadness, melancholy, uh, apathy, rejection, again, depression, sorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Again, they tend to deplete us, but they're low energy. In that upper left quadrant, we have high energy emotions, but they're depleting. Mhm. These are things like anger, fear, hate, desperation, resentment, and rage.
Mm-hmm.
Again, high energy, but they end up depleting us. In the moment, we feel alive, which is why some people can get addicted to them because even in those emotions, you get the adrenaline rush.
Mm-hmm.
But we also know because it's stress, you also want to get the cortisol and all the other hormones, and we can end up getting fat just from being mad. So you want to check your emotions. In the lower right quadrant, those are our low energy but renewing emotions. These things like peace, tranquility, calmness, serenity, care. Those are those emotions. Like I said, when you see somebody might be meditating, someone will listen to certain kind of music, they may have candles burning. They're in that space, very calm. Again, you're like I said, connecting with nature. That also adds to your health. But those are your low energy, but renewing emotions.
Right. They don't take up a lot of energy,
Nope.
but they recharge you.
Yes.
They give you back
Mhm.
a lot of energy.
Yes. Then there's the upper right quadrant. This is the powerhouse. All right. These are your high energy and high renewing emotions. These actually regenerate the cells in your body.
What's that? Laughter.
Well, you got joy, you got happiness, you got love, you got passion, excitement, bliss, and adventure.
Mm-hmm.
Those things will actually renew you, regenerate. If you could, you want to stay on the right side of this quadrant. So when you decide that you want to stroll over to the left, because pretty much that's probably where your ego lives, you're actually doing yourself a disservice. So just having, having an idea of how these different emotions play out, I think will give you insight on where do I want to be. That's it. Start with that desire,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and then begin your work from there. What kind of person do I want to be?
Right.
And here's again, I share this too. When I was in college, I had leadership courses, and my first leadership course, my instructor was a Navy SEAL. My second leadership course, my instructor was a Marine Corps colonel, lieutenant colonel, but we could call him colonel. Two men who were very confident in who they were, yet they were the most peaceful men. You might want to think that they may have been very,
So can you repeat?
oh,
Can you repeat those?
my quadrants?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Circling back, again, 4 quadrants in the high energy but depleting. We have anger, fear, rage, hate, desperation, resentment.
And that's going to be the top left.
Yep, you're very, again, a lot of energy and extremely depleting on the mind, body, and probably even the spirit.
Mm-hmm.
The low energy but depleting emotions are sadness, melancholy, sorrow, apathy, rejection, and depression. We come over,
Self-pity mode.
yes, come over to the low energy but renewing. We have things like peace, tranquility, calmness, serenity, care. That's where, again, sometimes you just need to back away from everything, go find a spot, like say in nature, or if you're home, that's where you're sitting quietly, your meditation, your prayer.
Just reground yourself.
Yeah.
You need to ground yourself.
And then, like I said, the powerhouse, the regenerative, renewing, high energy emotions are joy, happiness, love, passion, excitement, bliss, and adventure. And think about it, when you're in that space, when you experience any one of those emotions, just think about how you feel. I can take on the world.
You're firing on all cylinders, and you can take on the world.
Yep.
Whatever comes my way, I got this.
I
I got this today.
So I think it was Pastor Nicole.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Did everybody get those, or do you need me to repeat it one more time or 2 more times? Just let me know.
She got it.
Okay. So going back to my leadership instructor, I always go back to them because there were 2 men who had probably seen some dangerous situations, yet they were 2 of the, I'm gonna say, coolest, calmest, men that I've known. I was again thankful to have them as instructors.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I bring it up because when you look at people who become, I guess they don't feel like they have to prove anything.
I was going to say, yes.
They don't lose their,
right.
These were warriors, but they didn't have to be the warriors.
Right. Not in this place, not in this setting. They know the appropriate place, time, and setting that they need to exert whatever energy they need to in a space.
Yes. They don't have to prove anything. I would say to people, for those who think they have to prove something, probably do. Because you get to a point where you become at peace with yourself and you become a master of your emotions.
Right. And you can look at the injustices that's levied against people of color and marginalized individuals in this country when it comes to law enforcement and how people are treated by some of those law enforcement officers. So what are they proving? And who do they have to prove it to that you will execute an innocent person, an unarmed person? And we're not talking about those, criminals that they need to be dealt with. We're talking about just innocent people losing their lives because someone wills the power, yet does not wield control of their emotions.
So you ask yourself, when you're in a situation and your ego may jump out and says, "Oh, I got to respond a certain way," you want to snatch your ego back and you want to look at the bigger picture.
Mm-hmm.
What do I have to gain by sinking to this person's level? You know? Now, one of the best or the quickest tips that you can do, actions that you can take, and there's different ways of doing it, but they all seem to be centralized on one thing, and that is breathing. Because when we get angered, we get frustrated, we tend to have shallow breathing.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a whole bunch of techniques, but first thing you want to do is you want to become aware of the situation and say, I need to respond, not react.
Mm-hmm.
And you begin to, once you do that, that's your moment where it will maybe stop you in your tracks. And then you say, you know what? Let me breathe.
Right. And it's a technique
Yes.
in the breathing. It's not hyperventilating
No.
breaths. It's deep breaths, and holding it and then breathing it out slowly so that the chemical imbalance that has been triggered by the stressful situation can recalibrate.
Yes.
You
want to get control of your body again.
Mm-hmm.
Because as we mentioned, those negative, as said, depleting emotions.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason why they refer to it as depleting.
Exactly.
So you want to again move your body back to what they call homeostasis, which is your body is going back to its health.
Its natural state.
Yeah.
Right.
So again, just think about it. It's the breathing. And think about this on another level. Why breathing happens to be able to bring you back to this place of well-being, both mentally and physically, because again, our breathing. We take our first breath, signify that we're alive, and we let our last breath go when we're dead. All right. So
to signify, hey, I'm out of here.
Yes. So breathing is actually an essential part of life. So when you can master your breathing, you can bring your body back into a state of well-being.
Exactly.
It's probably a little bit harder to do when you're in the midst of something, but if you're carrying emotion after the event, breathe. And actually from the HeartMath Institute, the technique that they use is you want to breathe and actually breathe as if the breath is going, down through your heart and breathing out.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a reason for that, which we won't go into now, but if you can visualize that changes, and that allows you to move from one emotional state to another.
Mm-hmm.
So if you say, you know what, I don't want to be mad anymore, again, your desire is, I don't want to be mad anymore. Not somebody telling you, don't be mad.
But you can replace that with a mantra.
Mm-hmm.
I'm calm. I'm not upset. I'm calm. I am relaxed. I'm relaxed. You can train your brain when you are triggered.
Yes.
To recite that mantra.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of that negative emotion playing out, you replace it with your mantra. I am relaxed. I am calm. I'm not going to let that take me out of my space.
That's a key phrase right there. It was one of the things that, I started using this, I'm not going to let this person take me out of my space.
Mm-hmm.
And granted, it does happen, but you want to have that awareness that, no, I want to be in a good space. Regardless of what's going on in my life, I want to be in a good space.
Mm-hmm.
One, because that's how you move out of the bad space, meaning things not going right,
Mm-hmm.
into better, is that you yourself, you have to be in a good space. When that doesn't happen, if you're discombobulated, it's kind of hard to fight a battle when you are, just losing, you're mad.
Mm-hmm. But I think one way to combat that is to remove yourself from that space from that situation, from the environment,
Mhm.
and allow some space and time to calm you, and if there's a conflict, that other person down, so
Mhm.
that you can come back and effectively communicate.
Yes. So
Because
yes, first, go ahead.
no, I was going to say, then you can effectively communicate, not just by expressing yourself, but by being able to listen to what the other person has to say.
So yes, if there's a situation where there's physical space involved, yes, remove yourself from the physical space. Then you want to remove yourself from the emotional space. Mhm. Like I said, when you become really good, you can remove yourself from the emotional space in that moment, which will basically nullify the physical space. Mhm. Does that make sense?
Yep,
Mhm.
I'm good at that.
No. Yeah. If you can nullify, like I said, if you can shift your emotional space, your
Uh-huh.
mental emotional, the physical space really doesn't become an issue anymore.
Right. And you have to be mindful. You have to
Mhm.
practice mindfulness, which is that going deeper into your psyche. It's not just being mindful of your surroundings. It's really being mindful of what triggers you, what gets under your skin, what annoys you, what takes you out of your place of harmony.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
So first, again, you want a desire to be in harmony. You want to have a desire to be in that place. You want to have a desire to be a particular type of person. Uh, you know, and then you want to take action to become protective of that space and that state of being.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. So it's a battle. It is a battle, that you have to take on to get to where you want to be.
But it can be worn.
Yes.
It can be worn. So
Now, so again, you want to,
on that.
just to kind of recap, you really want to start with the awareness, start paying attention to yourself in relationship to other people.
Mm-hmm.
Ask yourself, is this working for you? Because people will justify it, rationalize it. Why I'm right? They did this, and blah blah blah. Well, how's that playing for you if you're the one that got fired? You know,
Exactly.
uh,
And if it keeps playing over and over and over and over in your mind, you really haven't effectively dealt with it.
no. So you ask yourself, is this working for me? And if you're honest, the answer probably is no. Mhm. Then you say, you get, I, I want to change. I have a desire to change. I have a desire for something new, something improved.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, people are familiar, with my I Am Possible brand, so basically it's change, it's improved, change, and transformation. There are three levels, so you ask yourself, do I need to, improve? And that might be just one area in your life. Maybe I need to improve my communication. Mhm. Maybe it just needs a little, step up.
Mm-hmm.
Do I need to change? Do I need to change my behavior? All right, is it something I'm doing that needs to be changed? Well, that third level is, all right, because here's the thing, I can improve, but I can also slide backwards.
Mm-hmm.
I can change, I can still slide backwards because I'm kind of on that fence.
But also give yourself the grace
Mm.
to falter,
Mhm.
because we're not perfect and
No.
we're going to slip up. We're going to have triggers that are going to take us outside of that place of harmony. So I think we have to be mindful that it's okay to make a mistake. It's okay to fail, but just be aware that you pick yourself up and you get back on track.
Yeah. And again, you're just making a distinction because people say, well, I've changed. Yes, maybe you have, but that means you still can slip back. So don't think it's permanent.
Right.
Mhm. But when you transform, you don't go back. That's why it's, again, different levels of effort. The butterfly will never become a caterpillar ever again. Even, like I said, on a biological DNA perspective, there are no traits of the caterpillar in the butterfly's DNA. That's pure transformation. You don't know that person that you used to be 5
Mhm.
years, 10 years ago.
Sure, that's the truth.
You know, so you start with, yeah, let me improve, let me change, and then if necessary, let me transform. Mhm. I need to go through a transformation.
I can tell you that Dr. Nicole says I can always slide backwards. Understand that, which is true.
Mm.
I often talk about my salvation, and prior to accepting Christ in my life, I cursed like a sailor. You would sometimes when I think back on that time in my life, it's hard for me to really relate to that person. Because I'm like, if I say an explicit, I'm like, did I just, oh my God, did I just say that? And I feel so bad. I condemn myself, right? But to the point of the topic, once you are transformed, you really don't want, you can't relate to that old self, to that old way of thinking, to that old way of reacting. So that's just an illustrative example of, if I slip up and say an explicit, I am like repenting of Hail Mary's, Lord have mercy, forgive me. But it doesn't even sound right coming out of my mouth, So that's that transformation. I might slip up, but I have been transformed to the point where that slip is not a frequent slip. It does not happen often. And it's very far and few between. And if someone hears me say something that's out of character of who I am today, it's like, oh my, I didn't think you, but that's that transformation.
Yes.
That's what transformation looks like.
Yes. So again, going forward, just start with, and again, this is really for all of us, especially in today's time where we can't just go, as such entertainer might say, all willy-nilly on folks, all right? Because we don't know where they are in their moment.
Oh, so true. So true.
So when we want to snap, the response that we get may not be something we want.
Right. So that clap back may be a little bit harder than our clap.
Yes.
Right.
Or if you're lucky, maybe the clap back won't be to you, but the clap back could be to the next person that individual encounters.
Right. They pay it forward.
Yes.
Not in a good way.
Right.
Not in a good way.
So ask yourself again, who do I want to be? And is this the characteristics of that person?
Absolutely.
And again, just be mindful of whether you're reacting or responding. And when you really become good, you can either step it up. Somebody can bring you some negativity, and you can respond with some love and kindness, nip it in the bud, and literally they won't have a thing to say because they can't come back with anything. You know what? If they just want to be mad, they'll be mad walking away.
Exactly. Exactly.
So, just some thoughts for tonight. Remember, your beliefs, your emotions, your thoughts, and your story. They dictate all aspects of your life. All
aspects, no matter where you are, what setting, what you're doing, who you're doing it with. Just remember those four attributes, and they will help navigate you through whatever situation you're in and help you deal with them. So, and if you don't know what they are, then maybe you need to really sit down and maybe write out what you're feeling, what you think about a thing, what you think you believe, what your emotional state is in that moment so that you can deal with it. What are your thoughts around it? Ask yourself the why, what, who, and where. Ask the questions.
And if if you feel bold or really desperate, ask somebody close to you.
Exactly.
About you.
Which is sometimes the best way, but the rawest way.
Yes.
In order to affect change.
Yes.
and action in yourself,
Mhm.
right? So it's hard hearing the truth about yourself.
And again, when you do this, you're on a path of discovery, so you don't want to be judgmental, whether it's you asking the questions or you asking someone else. You just want to take the answers and then address them.
That's a good one. Remember that you're on the path of discovery,
Mhm.
not destruction.
Correct.
You're on the path of discovery, not destruction. So I think that wraps it up for tonight, Coach.
Yes. Yeah.
So we just want to tell you that we are just so grateful for you finding it not robbery to spend a little bit of time with us. And we will be back next Tuesday, 8 p.m. with another topic. Hopefully, prayerfully, you will join us. And we thank you, Dr. Nicole, for being engaged and providing your comments. And Ray, thank you for joining us on the I Am Ready
Yes. YouTube.
network, the YouTube station. We thank you for viewing us there. So I'm Coach Mitchell.
I'm Coach Darren.
We are at the Power of Now. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next Tuesday at 8 p.m., hopefully with another engaging topic.
Good night.
Good night.